Hey everybody, this is Hob.
And Jamie.
And you're watching Dutch and Dragons. Ooh, we got that one good that time.
Yeah.
Nice. Anyhow, so
now we need
today...
to start doing it in harmonies.
Oh no, that's too much work. So today we're talking about crafting a story. And so, without further ado, the Pink Box O questions.
Ta-da!
See, Pink Box.
Alright, first question. Da-da-da-da-da. What consideration should I give to the themes presented in my stories?
So if you're crafting a story, what considerations you should give are actually about
what your players want
what your players are going to want to play. And you know what, it's really, really bright out there.
Is.
So
yeah, no, abandoned
sunglasses
ship.
back on.
Sunglasses.
So it's all about what themes your players want to interact with. So if your players are really interested in playing a game that is centered around political intrigue, then the themes of the story that you craft for them should carry some of that. You'll find that your players are interested in all sorts of different stuff, and sometimes they will be interested in things that you aren't interested in, and so you might need to leave those themes out, but you might also try to work them in smaller amounts so that you can appeal to your players, really, because that's what the story's all about, right?
You just start with asking your players what kind of books they like to read and what kind of movies they like to watch.
That's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, so you can really get a feel for kind of the genres. Maybe you have someone who really likes dark comedies. Well, maybe some dark comedy in the game would really go over well with them. Mystery, horror, so themes of love and loss, and it really just depends. And look at what they like to read and what they like to watch and see what themes go on in those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Next. The short answer is whatever themes your players are interested in. How do I correctly scale the story to the PC level? This one's important.
It is. You want to take first stab?
Yeah. So first of all, you're going to want to establish the kind of story. Like, there are, I guess, big epic adventures. There are. But an epic adventure can be an epic adventure of normal people. Not necessarily what you would call, like, heroes. Like Hercules, if you're playing characters, if your players want to play characters like Hercules, having them go up against regular old, like, stone giants, probably not going to be all that interesting.
Obviously you've never gone up against stone giants.
Well, I'm talking about no. You know where I'm going with this. Anyhow, so I would say, first of all, figure out who the big bad baddie is. Like the end game boss, the dude who's causing all the problems, and think about how powerful he is, and then map your story backwards. So go, if this is where I want my PCs to end, what kind of PC could take him on? What level are these PCs? What magic items do these PCs have? And then go backwards and make a story that will eventually get your PCs from first set foot in your world to now I'm fighting this big bad baddie.
Yeah, so
that was horrible.
To what you're saying, your player characters, so you can use the CR system in 5e, and I don't think it works very well.
I don't like the CR system.
I don't think it scales. I don't think it power scales as well as it could. And I don't know how to fix it because there's like a weird mathematical formula that goes into it, and I still don't really understand it. So I try to scale my monsters to the difficulty of the players regardless of what it is that they're fighting. So if they're fighting zombies and they're 5th level, I'm going to scale that encounter to a 5th level power setting. Now it might not be that the zombies are 5th level or are equivalent. It could be that there's like a necromancer. It could be a number of them, or a whole bunch of different factors. But when you're creating a story with a big bad evil person or a cosmic horror or something like that, you have to take into consideration how you get your players into a position and your player characters into a position wherein they are of a power level where that fight, that ending, is going to be both challenging and satisfying. So it's a really careful balancing game, and sometimes you have to fudge your power level up for your boss fight, or you have to bring it down a little bit.
I've got that. I've done that whole thing where oops, this might be a little too powerful. I'm gonna kill all my players.
Oh yeah.
But,
I did it in the middle of an adventure once.
Yeah, and we always talk about this. Sometimes you let your players die. Sometimes you don't. You step in.
Yep.
Mistake on my end, I step in. All right. What are some ways you deliver quests to your players? So a lot of times your story is told through your quests and through what they have to go and do.
True story.
So how do you deliver that to your players in a way that's interesting?
So there are a ton of ways to do it. Random letters that they receive, or quest boards, job boards. They can hear about them through rumors. They can pick them up from reading in a library. You know, they're reading something and it alludes to the location of a really powerful magic item that might help them deal with the threat that they're facing.
You can just straight up hand it to them. By having a PC that's basically the quest giver.
Yeah, you can straight up hand the quest to them.
Might not be the most interesting way, but
you can also take from their backstories and weave those into your story to give them clues about the quests that they're going to go on. So if you can take and weave their backstory into the story that you're spinning, it makes it even more real for your players. So there's
a little organic too.
A little more organic, right? So there's a wealth of ways, and as many ways to give your characters story quests as there are stories to tell.
I favor the kind of organic. You go. They start off by being basically spoon-fed an event. Oh my gosh, there's a kidnapping! Quick, go hurry, go help! And then they get to the kidnapping and
that lady's car was straight up rolling away from her.
Oh, I thought there was a puppy.
I was like, that lady's car is going to escape. Sorry, I got distracted.
But they get to the kidnapping, and then through the person that they save, they find out about this other thing to go and do. And it's just one thing leads into the next. And that's my preferred way of quest giving. It's not the way, that's the way I always do it, but it's my preferred. What about you?
I like the job boards and quest givers that are things like letters asking for help, or I'm a big fan of job boards and quest givers, really, because it gives them somewhere to link back to.
Yeah, that's true. I like that.
But however it happens, it happens.
Next question.
Next.
Where do you get your inspiration for your stories?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Movies, books, and 1 second, we're going to order coffee. Actually, it'll probably be more than a second, but anyhow. What's up? It's going all right.
What are your guys' names, by the way?
I'm Hob.
I'm Jamie.
Hob and Jamie.
Yep.
Alright, awesome. I'm JT. I've seen you guys come through so many times.
Right on.
I need to know them.
Nice to meet
Hob
you,
and
JT.
Jamie. And were you guys here earlier?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet. What can I get you this
I'd like a small iced extra shot coconut milk caramelizer. Really hope they're not actually going to back up.
I will put myself behind.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that.
I think you're worth more than our car.
Okay,
It's cool. I got a dash cam. We're good.
Does your camera ever get, or your phone, does it ever get really, really hot, like, and shut off on you, though?
No, not generally. I'm not using the phone as the dash cam. I have an actual dash
Oh, you have
cam.
a sweet one. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. And then you have your phone as well.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah, the phone is for something else. But anyhow.
Oh, okay. So it's coconut milk. Is that
Yeah, a
right?
small iced extra shot coconut milk caramelizer.
You got it.
And a small iced...
Sweet sunrise tea with black tea.
Small ice, sweet sunrise, black tea. Got it.
Yep.
Is this your guys' go-to all the time?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? Okay, the sometimes.
He's pretty the same. I
I was gonna
change
say,
mine.
I feel like I've seen your
Yeah,
order generally
I'm
comes
pretty
up.
consistent.
Awesome.
I change mine up
Alright.
quite a bit.
Every so often, depending how you're feeling.
Yeah.
I get you. Well, Hob and Jamie, good meeting you. It's gonna be 8:20 at the window, okay?
Cool.
Alright.
Thanks, man.
see
Have
you
a good
guys.
one, JT.
You too. Stay cool.
Yep. All right, so
Inspiration for
stories. So
everywhere,
books, movies, television, other modules, Reddit, Facebook. I mean, if there's a story somewhere, you can find a way to use it in your storytelling.
One of my favorite is Twisted Fairy Tales. Those always make great one-shot adventures.
True, they do.
Hi, you guys. Good to see you.
Yeah.
I have this small triple ice coconut milk caramelizer and the small sweet sunrise black tea, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. 822 beer total. And then, do we have a stamp card?
I need a new one.
No, I don't think so. Are you guys regulars?
Yes.
It's Jamie and this is Tom.
Hi.
Jamie and Tom.
Hob.
Hob, like Hobbit.
And Hobbs, but
Yeah,
Sort of,
like,
yes.
That's better.
He's
I
heavy
think
like
Hobbit.
hobbits.
like corn in the hob.
Okay. Well, you
Okay,
got
that
it
was
all
just
box.
corny. That was just corny.
Did we get a dad joke out of that?
Yeah, I think we did.
Awesome.
Hob, do you have a stamp card? Or you
No,
want
I need a new one.
Perfect. I love it. Good. And what was your name again?
Jamie.
Jamie. Okay. What do you have in the box?
Questions.
Question. Okay. For a second, I thought I saw like a little mouse or a hamster. I was like, ooh, they're exotic pet people. Are you guys like on a long road trip and are trying to?
Oh no, we just
We do a weekly video cast for
what is it?
We do a weekly video thing for Dungeons and Dragons.
yep.
Oh,
Questions,
I love
and
that.
that's
So
right
you guys
there.
are streamers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so stinking fun. How cool is that?
Yeah,
Do you
we
guys post
went-
them on YouTube?
Huh?
Do you guys post them on YouTube? Cool.
Yeah,
I like
our
that.
channel is
I
literally
have my
called
YouTube
Dungeons and
channel. I
Dragons.
posted like 2 videos before. I don't like do it for any reason, just for fun. And I'm
Right.
like, it's been over a year since I've done one, so I think I want to get back into it.
There you go.
But it's just a cool way to like, just have a hobby, you know?
Yeah,
Even if nothing
it is
comes
a good
of it,
hobby.
you don't have to have anything come of it. Just
It
for
gives us
yourself,
something
it's
to
like-
do in our coffee line.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, good. You guys have a great day. Enjoy, all right? We'll see you soon.
Bye.
So anyhow, anywhere that there is a story that has been told, there is a story that you can adapt and tell.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
they-
like Saving the Dragon from the Evil Princess. Always makes a fun one shot.
Yes, Saving the Dragon from the Evil Princess is a fantastic one-shot adventure. And do note that we said Saving the Dragon
From the Evil
Princess. So there's inspiration everywhere. Take a look around for it. You'll find it. And don't be ashamed to borrow.
Oh yeah.
And adapt. Change the tone, change the outcomes, change the bad guys in any story, or the bad people in any story, and you end up with a whole new tale to tell your players. So there we
It's
go.
always fun. How do I keep my plot flexible enough to survive player interaction? Ba, ba, ba.
So the
No
rule
plan
is
survives player interaction.
no plan survives contact with the players. That is a truism of Dungeons and Dragons and any other role-playing game, I think. But would you like to tackle this?
I have basically the beginning of my story sorted out. I have an idea of what the end looks like. That's still pretty flexible, but everything in between, I sort of have major, little events. But how they get to those events and what they do with them is totally up to the player. And you kind of have to be super flexible because your players are going to come up with things in your game that you did not see coming. I had an entire plot change in one of my games because I made a spelling mistake on one of the things I handed to them. So I handed them this card with this spelling mistake, and they're like, well, that's an interesting way to put it. There must be something deeper in this. And I went, yes, that's exactly what's going on. That was not a spelling mistake. I meant to do that.
I had my players derail an entire game session to save a village that I didn't think that they were actually going to bother to save. I figured they were just going to run straight into the enemy's fortress and do their stealthy whatever the crap they were going to do and leave the village to sort itself out. But no, they were like, oh no, we're going to save the villagers. I'm like, really? Well, okay.
We're saving the villagers.
I guess we're saving the villagers. It was totally unexpected, but you have to have that flexibility. You have to be able to adjust on the fly when your players do things that you don't expect them to.
And one of the cool things is to have some sort of outcome come from those spontaneous decisions. So they've saved the villagers. The next time they circle back to that village, maybe the whole village has heard of them. Maybe they get mad discounts or free drinks at the inn, and everybody wants to help them because they're heroes. Think the hero of Canton from Firefly, something completely unintended that happened because
of the events in which they participated.
Yeah, so it's really cool to put those elements into your story. All right, next. How do I know when the campaign is over? Oh, so this is an interesting question, and I see this prop up a lot with open-ended campaigns. We have been running a slightly open-ended campaign, which is basically they're hunters in the world hunting down money and glory and magical items, and so with something that doesn't really have an overarching plot, at what point, well, it sort of does and it sort of doesn't.
Yeah.
But at what point do you go, okay, this has run its course? I always say when it feels finished.
So there's nothing more aggravating than leaving a game unfinished or poorly finished. I ran a game where the players played as children, and then that was like the opener to the game, and then they made their characters as adults and came back to their village to finish out this story that had started when they were children. And the story did not end in what I felt was a satisfactory way. I didn't feel satisfied by it. I don't think my players really felt satisfied by it. But we were in a situation where the campaign, it really had to end. Because of scheduling and a whole bunch of other stuff. That game had to come to an end, so I had to give it an ending. It wasn't satisfying. So now we've come back around, and I'm hoping to be able to give that campaign, that game, a more satisfying ending later on. But
we'll see.
We'll see. The reality is that the campaign is over when it's over. And you'll know, and it might be through abandonment, it might be through a satisfying ending, it might be through a less than satisfying ending. It's really, but you'll know when it's over. And if you try and drag it on, it's only going to be painful.
Well, and a lot of times people will say, if you're not having fun in the campaign, if the campaign feels more like work than fun, it's probably time to end it. And I would always say that ending it too soon is always better than ending it too late. So if you go, I'm going to just wrap this campaign up, even though we're all still kind of having fun, we're getting towards a point where it's pushing its limits and it's time to wrap the campaign up. Give it a satisfying ending and move on, because that will always be better than a rushed, unsatisfying ending.
Yep.
You know, like how most people feel about Game of Thrones Season 8, a rushed, unsatisfying ending.
You're gonna dig in that wound, huh?
I actually liked the end, but I've read the books, so it's a little bit different, I feel. But
you have a different context.
Yeah, a different context. But those types of endings are going to be less fun than a satisfying ending that almost comes, feels like it comes too soon. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is another one of those that I really like to say. They could have ended Buffy during the glory season. She jumps, she dies, it's all very tragic and wonderful, but it also feels finished. And he did that on purpose because they didn't know whether they were going to get renewed for those next few seasons. And so we got this really satisfying ending that could go on, but by itself it was also a very good ending.
Yeah.
So I say, end it before it drags on too late. And then
before you jump the shark.
Before you jump the shark. And if you don't know what that means, Google.
All right, next question.
Time for one more?
Yeah, we got one more.
One more. How do you craft a story that includes more than one person as the protagonist?
Okay, so
there are a couple ways you can do that.
There is a task in role-playing. If you have a group of more than two people, which, by the way, you can play D&D with 2 people. It's interesting.
It's swell with 2 people.
Anyhow, if you have a story which involves more than 2 people as player characters, then it behooves you to include elements that make all of your players protagonists at some point in time. Now, that doesn't mean that the story has to directly revolve around all of your players. It means that elements of the story have to revolve around each of your individual players' characters. So the trick is to have an antagonist or a villain which is tied to a specific character or a specific event or a specific place, and then have events that occur that are tied to that villain that are focused on each of your individual player characters. And that's how you do it. And that's really effing hard.
One mechanism that I have heard people do for this is they will take every session and say this session is going to be really focused on this particular player, and they rotate through. Like, everybody is involved in every session, but one player is very much focused on in each session. That can work. It can also be if you have players who just sort of sit around and become actors when it's not their session. That can be a little frustrating sometimes. It's not my favorite mechanism, but it is a good it is a fair mechanism. Yeah. The other one is to have the team itself, like the banner itself. They're the heroes of, I'm going to pick something cheesy off the top of my head, the Black Wolf. And this god or this bad guy or this whatever really has it in for anyone who flies under this banner. So the other thing is to make an organization kind of,
or a standard or a specific symbol becomes the quote unquote protagonist that the antagonist is targeting.
Which, if you haven't read The Black Company, think The Black Company.
Yeah.
Books.
Oh yeah.
Very good books, by the way.
All right. Well, that is all the time that we have for questions today.
Yep.
We thank you very much all for joining us.
Yay!
If you love or hate what we do, please make sure to subscribe below. If you love what we do, also click like, and so that you can get updates about our videos. Make sure to click the little bell. Leave any comments or questions below in the section down there. And
we'll add them to our box.
We will add them to our box. And next week's topic is So You've Played World of Warcraft.
Yes, it's very interesting that I sometimes get new D&D players that have come from World of Warcraft. That's their first
games of that type.
Yeah,
but that's what we'll be talking
players.
about. If you have questions for us, leave them in the box below or in the comments below.
Yeah.
And we'll get to those. If they're appropriate to the topic, we will add them to the box. If not, they may get moved into another section. So that's all. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.